So hi Pete, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for spending some time with me. Here we are in the midst of Black History Month, and Leap wants the world to know kind of our take on why that month is important. It's more than just a month; it should be something that we celebrate all year. And as a member of our team, kind of just wanted to highlight some of your experiences as a Black person here in America and at Leap, and learn a little bit about your story. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you came to find Leap.
I totally agree with everything you said, man. I think Black history is something that is not just celebrated in one month, but it's America's history, right? It's our history, so it's celebrated every single day of the year. So I mean, just my background, I've been in insurance now for, man, 11, 12 years right out of college. I think for most of us that have gotten into insurance in that facet, uh, it wasn't something that was premeditated, right? It was like, it
Who grows
was
up wanting to be selling insurance?
yeah, it wasn't premeditated. I went to college for marketing, actually,
Okay.
ironically, and got my degree in marketing, and I needed a job, and that first job out of college was a claim adjuster.
Oh wow.
And so from there, I mean, you fast forward 10 years through my development, and I ended up here at Leap. But I'll backtrack, man, in terms of my story, right, and who I am and where I came from. Like, I'm from Harlem, New York. I grew up in Harlem in the '90s, so it's a little bit different in terms of how it looks now, and
Yeah.
how it looked when I grew up. It was a bit rougher,
Yeah.
just like any inner city, right? You have your trials and tribulations and minimal resources, and just different things that you have to overcome growing up in an environment like that. But the fortunate part for me, which was different than some of my peers, right, in that same environment, is I had a really good household. I had two parents that loved me.
Mm.
They poured into me. They really gave and did everything that they needed to do to just keep me on the right track. And so part of that was like putting me into athletics. I played baseball since I was 4.
Oh wow.
And I would say, for myself, baseball was really the one thing that always kept me motivated. It always kept me driven, always kept me on the right track, even when there were times I would veer off a little bit, right? But there were so many people in that journey, including my parents. There were coaches and mentors that really aligned well with what my vision was, and they saw something in me that I may have not at times saw in myself.
Yeah.
And that led to me going to college, and that was a huge accomplishment for me and my family, right? Because my parents, hardworking, dedicated, did everything that they could, but they graduated from high school. And so I think every parent's goal in life, when you have kids, is to give them a better future or a better start
Yeah.
than you had. And they certainly did that for me, right? I was able to go to college, and become the first college graduate in my family,
Oh,
right? And then that led to me getting my master's degree in organizational leadership, and then you couple all of those experiences to working at State Farm and building the relationships that I had there. From State Farm, I ended up transitioning to Farmers Insurance as a claims manager within the Northeast region, and then took some of those experiences and went to HSB, where I was a director of commercial claims and overseeing some initiatives there. And for me, and in my career track, right, I like being challenged. I like seeing and helping and aiding towards being innovative, right? And
yeah.
so when the opportunity came for me to jump on board with Leap, or take the leap, right, and come here, I mean, it was a sure thing. I really didn't have any, like, too many second guesses on whether or not this was the right fit and right place for me.
Yeah.
The things that I saw in terms of, like, the vision of Leap and what we're trying to accomplish, when it comes to our rent guarantee program and LDR, and some of the future products that we're rolling out, and really trying to mend the gap in terms of affordable housing, right?
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
of these, global issues that are going on right now, especially after a pandemic, it aligned with what my values are. and then just being with the organization, that I'm able to have a huge impact, and see those impacts, right? Like
Yeah.
see the initiatives fully go through, and being in this insure tech and startup world, it's totally new to me. So it's everything that we do is just exciting. Everything that we do is, it's thrilling for me, and it's a challenge. And there's some things where I sit here and I scratch my head, right? And it's like, man, I've never encountered this before. But then there's, resources and experiences that I have, and relationships that I can tap into to get the knowledge that we need to move things forward. And so just being a part of something special from the ground up, it's invaluable. And that was really the main purpose of me, taking the leap and coming over here.
Well, I'm sure glad you did, because you really made a difference for sure.
Thanks.
So interesting. You talk about sports and how much that matters to you. Can you share with the viewers a little bit about you've got a kind of a philanthropic give back that you are involved in your community. And can you share a little bit about that with folks?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, right, baseball, for me was something that, without it, I don't really know if I would be in this seat talking to you right now, right? I don't know if I would have had, as much focus on trying to make a better life for myself, and trying to put myself in a position to where I'm at today, without, the lessons that I learned through baseball.
Yeah.
And because of that, even though I'm very much retired, I I don't play anymore. I
At
don't
what
compete.
age?
Like, yeah, I'm 31, right? I'm retired. I'm a retired baseball veteran, right? But it was something that, even with my career in insurance, I always had this vision of doing something greater, right? Like I wanted to establish a good livelihood and a good career path, and that's great. But my legacy isn't going to be Pete Kidd, the insurance guy, right? That's not
Oh man, that's as sexy as it gets.
right. That's not the legacy that, even though I love what I'm doing, and I love how much of an impact I'm able to make, especially here at Leap. I wanted something greater. And so part of that was like, man, what can I do to help, the next Pete Kid that's in Harlem or Baltimore, or now, in Atlanta where I live,
Yeah.
um, go had that same track
Yeah.
and be better, right? Because there's things that I learned throughout the course of time that just I had to learn through experiences. And though that's good, it's like, man, I wish I would have known that when I was 10 or
Right.
11 or 12
Yeah.
or 15, right? And so I have all this knowledge in my head and experiences. And it was like, you know what? I just need to give back and give my time back to, the kids that look like me, right? Kids that are in cities, in different areas that really don't have maybe the same resources, or maybe have the resources, but maybe just don't have people around them that are
Yeah.
truly, genuinely in it for the purpose of helping them go and get to where they want to get to, right? And so, I established Elite Kid Baseball and Softball, LLC, as part of a way to, give back and give my time and pour into kids and pour into, like, just whatever it is that they want out of the sport. I have some kids that play the sport because they want to go pro. I have some kids that, like myself, play the sport because they want a way out, right?
Mhm.
They want a
Yeah.
way out into getting to that next level, whether that be college, whether that be pro, or just opening up their experiences outside of their area. And so I think probably predominantly about 95% of the players that are in my program, are minorities, right? Black, Hispanic, Asian. And for the most part, they all come from great families, great households. But there are, some kids that are from broken homes, right?
Mhm.
They have a single family household, or they have a two-parent household, but the resources aren't really there to pay for training, to pay for all of the things that come with baseball, because it is a very expensive sport.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And so, I offer services, to them where it's even in alignment with helping them navigate this process of being a amateur baseball player and trying to get exposure to, you know, college coaches.
Yeah.
How do you write a letter or write a email to a college coach introducing yourself, right?
Oh, that's great.
What are some of the things that you have to say, or how do you carry yourself? How do you give a handshake and introduce yourself and explain who you are as a person to this coach that has never met you, right? Or they see this skill set that you have, but they want to know the person behind the skill, right? And so it's much greater than just teaching a kid how to field a baseball or hit a baseball or throw, right? I think a lot of who I am to my core came from some of the successes, but really a lot of the failure that I
Mm.
saw in baseball. And this is coming from somebody who, I played in the Little League World Series, and I played at a high level in high school, and played in college. And, my career ended due to a torn labrum, torn rotator cuff. But
Mm.
with that came a lot of failure. And
Yeah.
so I think, failure is the greatest teacher in life. And, because I saw some failure, not saying that these kids that I'm training and teaching and pouring into won't see the same failure,
Yeah.
but they will have a better foundation on how to respond to the failure.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the most important part that I'm trying to teach and just pour into the community.
I love it. How many kids typically are you working with in a year?
In a year, so last year, 2021, I think I was around 50 to 60
Oh, wow.
kids in total. Yeah, and my training services, it happens on weekends, and a couple weekdays, but it's usually after hours. And I like I said, even with some of my players, the services that I provide, because it's coming from a pure place, right? And I'm very authentic with who you see, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you've known me
I'll
now
vouch for
since
that.
joining Leap, and yeah, like what you see is what you get. I'm not going to sugarcoat or cover up who I am as a person, especially in the spectrum of that I'm in, with working with kids that look
Yeah.
like myself, black and brown boys and girls. I want them to feel comfortable being who they are.
Yeah.
And so with that comes, sometimes they give me a call to ask me about just different things in life that they're going through, right? And it has nothing to do with baseball.
Right.
It's just more so serving as, this big
Mentor.
brother or mentor or uncle or whatever it is that they look at me as. But just serving them and being there for them. And a lot of what has happened with my program is word of mouth. um I train a kid, the parents, they love what I'm doing for their kid in terms of like the skill set and the player development. But then they also see that it's coming from a very genuine and pure hearted place. And you know the saying that it takes a village, a lot of the parents look at
Yeah.
me as part of that village that's helping their kid go to where they need to go. And so that's how this is grown and manifested over the last 3 years, primarily since I moved to Georgia. But even before I established the official LLC, right? It was something that I've been doing even after I graduated college. And when I lived in Philadelphia and New York, I would go back up to the old academy that I trained at, and connected with those kids, right? And
Right.
so it's something that as long as I'm able, I'll probably always do it and always make time for it. Because again, my legacy, is that. I think my legacy is, pouring back into the community and just trying to, be an example of somebody that comes from the same place that they come from. And didn't allow my circumstance to impact, what my outcome and what my results were.
I love it. I love it. Now, if people were interested in learning more about Elite Kid, how would they go about finding out more information?
Yeah, so everything's on social media, and in this world you don't necessarily need a website now, right? So everything is through Instagram and Facebook. So it's a Elite Kid Infield U, because I teach infielders.
Okay.
And on Instagram, and then on Facebook it's Elite Kid Baseball and Softball.
And it's KIDD.
Yes, like my last name. So that, play on words, man. Had to find something clever. So,
Very creative.
I've been told Kid is a cool last name. So I try to, put that in the naming convention of everything. So
I love it. I love it. So, you've said the word legacy a couple of times, and I love to hear, how you want your legacy to be something that lasts and means something and makes a difference. But you are also about ready to be a dad, right?
I am, yes.
Yeah. So putting that lens on and also looking at the world through the lens of a Black man, what kind of things are you hopeful for your child, and in this world we live in where there's, not often a lot of equity, or it's difficult to get equity, a seat at the table. How, what, like, what's your first lesson going to be for your kid?
Man, that's, I mean, there's so many, man. Obviously, what you kind of pointed to, right? Like, and it's just, having a real conversation here. Things aren't equal.
Yeah.
As much as we would like to frame it as being equal,
Mhm.
I think we try our best, to take steps in that direction. But ultimately, the numbers speak for themselves, and a lot of what goes on in our world, from a Black and brown perspective, things are tougher,
Yeah.
and it's a lot harder to find success, that is equal to our non-Black counterparts,
Right.
right? And so, I think for me, again, I just kind of go back to, what I said earlier about, your circumstance, and not allowing that to dictate, who you are as a person. I think as long as you're always, in nature, authentic to who you are, who you are first, right? Is probably the most valuable lesson that I've learned,
Yeah.
over the course of my time, and my job, I think, as a father to be, is to make sure that my son knows who he is to his core, right?
Yeah.
And that he, has values where he treats everybody with respect, but he also requires respect, right? And
Yeah.
I think in order to receive respect, you have to give respect, right?
Right.
And I think that's a core value of mine. I think that in itself, taking race out of it, I think that always has allowed for me to, establish really good relationships with people, because I come from a place of respect, and requiring that when we're having our interactions. But I also knew who I am, and I'm authentic in that nature, and I value who I am as a person, first, right? And I also realize that, in this world, there's differences between all of us,
Yeah.
right? And I
And
find
thank
that,
goodness for that, right?
yeah, I
On
mean,
some level, it makes the world a much more interesting place to be a part of, but it also makes it a much more difficult place to be a part of sometimes too.
yeah, and it's tough, because when you have, a certain demographic or certain people that aren't as receptive or open to understanding differences, and understanding that just because you may look different than me, or you have a different perspective than I do, doesn't mean that you're, you know, wrong or bad, or don't deserve to be treated with respect or
Right.
fairly. It just means you're different.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's all
Well,
that
if
it
it were that
means.
easy, man, it's that easy,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it really is when you boil everything down
Yeah.
to it, right? It's just accepting everyone's differences, and trying to, you know, be able to, hey, look, I'm not a white man, right? You're not a Black man. What's the difference there? Where, our backgrounds, who we are, as people, is just, it's taking time to understand that,
Yeah.
right? And gain perspective. I can't disagree with what you're saying, because that's your perspective,
Yeah.
and though I may not believe it, or though I may not, um follow through with what your perspective is, I can at least respect where you're coming from,
Yeah.
and see it from your lens. And that's how I move throughout life. And that's what I will, definitely try to instill in my son, is that, you treat everybody with respect,
Yeah.
and you accept people's differences, and you move throughout this world knowing who you are to your core, and being authentic, and never stepping into a room where, you feel like you can't be who you are.
Yeah.